G'day everyone, welcome to the Poker Pulse podcast, episode number 6. I'm Craig Abernethy. I'm behind the Australian Poker Schedule, the website where you can find all of your poker series and everything upcoming for the calendar year. Once again, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, poker dealer and poker player, Catherine Young. How are you, Catherine?
Hey, I'm good. Good to be back. Very excited to be here and to get on with today's episode.
What have you been up to the last couple of weeks?
I've just finished the last series for the year that I had to deal. I was dealing APL Sydney, and in 2 days I'm flying off to the Bahamas. So it's all happening.
Yeah, that'll be fun. We'll talk about that a bit later on.
Yeah.
And I'm also joined by our resident professional, Troy Mclean. How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you?
I'm good. And where are you at the moment?
I'm in Melbourne, just playing the series at Crown. Yeah, I'm at Simon Wahesh's place.
Oh, yeah. So you'd be getting all the Lebanese catering and meals and all the beautiful cooking and all that sort of stuff from his mum, I expect. Anything else been happening at home?
Yeah, we had the cat brought a brown snake into the house, and my mum got bitten by a snake probably 12 years ago now. So she's petrified of them. So the cat brought a little, probably 40-centimeter brown snake into the house, and then. Yeah, so mum was freaking out. It was scary, to be honest.
Just delivered it like Uber Snake.
Yeah.
And once again, we have a special guest joining us this week, the one and only Bert Perry. So I'll bring him in there. How are you, Bert?
Hello.
Good to see you.
I'm doing well. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Or should we call you John Perry?
Depends on who you ask. Some people call me Perry John. Some people call me Edward John Perry. Yeah, it just depends on what country I'm in.
Well, speaking of that, which country are you in at the moment?
I'm in the lovely Vietnam. Some say it's kind of my second home at the moment. Yeah, it's a great place to play. So I'm in Hai Phong, and we're at the Pullman Grand here in Hai Phong, which is the third biggest city in Vietnam. And I think we're about 4 days into a series here. So yeah, having fun.
Yeah, it looks like you always have a lot of fun over there. I was looking through your hand and mob, and in Vietnam, it appears that you've won a trophy in every city that you've been to there. So that would be Hanoi, Da Nang, Phu Quoc, and where'd you say you are now? Hai Phong, where you won one just a couple of days ago. So, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Humble brag.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, that's I've had a lot of success here. I've had a lot of success, and yeah, I mean, I think because there's like smaller fields in the higher rollers, you're able to kind of get to more final table situations more often. You're sort of playing like 50 to maybe 120 player fields, and so it kind of looks maybe a bit more glamorous on paper than it actually is, in the daily grind. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've been to your house and I've seen your trophy cabinet. And combined with Jennifer Castle's, your partner's, obviously, collection of trophies as well, it's probably going to need an upgrade soon. A few extra shelves put in, all the trophies that you guys have been collecting.
Yeah, it's getting a bit ridiculous. The best trophy in that cabinet is one that Jacob Fall has, which is a free roll championship at the Czech Rays Poker Series. I think that's my favorite trophy that's in there. There's also, he has a WSOP ring as well, by the way, but I think that one takes a cake.
Yeah, no, yes.
Certainly had plenty of success. Kathy?
Let's just talk about your year so far. I mean, you've had so much success. You were the WPT Australia Player of the Series at the Star. You made an APL Millions fantasy team. Tell us about your year in general, just where you had the most success and what you've been up to.
Yeah, last year was probably my breakout year, I would say. It was my 5th year being a pro. My second poker career. I actually was a professional for about a year and a half in 2016. And they banned online poker, and I kind of quit for a bit. But so 2023, was my breakout year. And 2024 was a bit slower of a start. I was kind of was playing a lot and bricking a lot of series, and I was getting by on swaps. Actually, I have some good friends that made some amazing runs in main events. Mainly shout out to Konstantin Held. That guy, I had a 5% swap, and he shipped 2 main events this calendar year, so that kind of kept me afloat. And then in the back end of the year, kind of kicked off with WPT. Actually, I kind of just had that success, and the funny thing is that ultimately, like, I was doing not much different compared to the start of the year and the end of the year. It's just it's the way the game is. You have to ride the waves. But the WPT Player of the Festival was definitely like one of those moments in my career that I'll remember. It was like a tight race, a little bit tight towards the end, and it's quite special to have so much success in one series like that. It's a great feeling, and I had so many friends and people congratulate me for that one. So that was a definite highlight.
Yeah, so as you said, last year you had a massive breakout. You actually were the GPI Australian highest ranked player of the year, just pipping off Josh McCulley, and it all started.
It's the first and only time I've ever beat him in anything, so I'll have to take it.
Yeah, it all started early that year. You won. You shipped $100,000 at was it WPT in Cambodia or?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that one, I would say that's the most important tournament of my career, and it was a moment where I think me and my inner circle, which is Josh McCulley, Dylan Wayne, and Matt Bevan, we were all pretty much in tears, to be honest, because it'd been a long road. And I had to face Daniel Smilkovic heads up in that one, who's a very, very aggressive, talented German origin player. And I'd copped it so many times in those moments, and I was in a lot of makeup. And
for the last 2 years, this hold is the time. The fucking baby.
Oh, look at that.
Proud dad.
His hand halfway out.
Hopefully the ace then wins.
Let's see.
Oh my gosh! Wow! Mr. Perry! Say something! Oh my god, look at the board!
And it was like this surreal moment where I finally held in the all-ins and achieved the win. And so that's definitely that will probably always be my most important tournament, unless I win some 7-figure main event or something.
What was more important, that one or the online one where we were all at Craig's and you were grinding and you got it out of the hole?
Yeah, those are the two times I've cried, I think, in poker. Actually, I will say probably my most important win ever was back in 2019 when I won my first ever trophy. And that was, I beat this guy heads up in a teams event. His name was Troy Mclean, and I absolutely rinsed him heads up. And I got him behind 3 times and won all 3 times because poker's a game of skill. And so that was my first title. So that one will always be in my mind as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you won that, of course, WPT Cambodia High Roller, and then you went down over to Phu Quoc and took out an event over there as well. Or it might have been Da Nang you actually got a win. You had some results at Phu Quoc along the way, and then you got another super high roller win for 2.3 billion dong in Hanoi.
I love dong. Hey, it's such a great currency.
So
how many dong we're going to win? Billions. Yeah. What are they going to call you? Billion dong birdie. Billion dong birdie. Billion dong birdie. Billion dong birdie.
I love that nickname. It's just so funny. It's just
billion dong birdie. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long road, to be honest, and funnily enough, it was like 2.5 years of losing, and then 3 months undid all of that. It was crazy, and it just goes to show, how much variance there is in this game, and you have to have kind of an iron gut and rich backers to make it as a professional, especially playing high stakes. It's the swings are kind of hard to describe if you don't play them for a living. It's something that. It requires a lot of mental fortitude and discipline, sometimes I've had to quit for a month or two, and I've had to do other things in my life just to get back on track mentally. It's really, really tough game. So, but yeah, since then, luckily for me, I've just been cruising and I found my groove. I'm also playing a lot better as well. I've improved over the years, so that helps too.
Yeah, well, since I've known you certainly taught me a lot about the game, so a lot about poker and the resilience you need. Like I was just and I am a recreational player, but I love poker, as you know, and it's a lot of fun. But when you sort of look at the professional side of it, you get a lot more insights, and that's sort of why it's great to have you on the show. I tell you talked about traveling, and you got friends and stuff over there, your close group, but you're also in a relationship with the #1 GPI ranked Australian female, Jennifer Castle. So how do you, how do you sort of manage that? How do you find having a relationship with a professional poker player? And it obviously suits you in some ways, but just sort of want to find out how that all sort of goes,
Yeah, that's a good question. So when we met, she was a dealer. And I think overall it's been very helpful that she understands poker. Whether or not she ended up transitioning to a pro like she has was another thing, but she kind of understood that I needed to play long hours and all these things that maybe someone that you just meet who doesn't know what the game is like might be kind of a challenging thing to ask of someone, to be like, hey, we're going overseas for 3 weeks and you're not going to see, I'm going to be playing 12 hours a day. So having that, knowing, the fact that she was kind of aware of how the game works and what I was doing was great. And then since she's become a very capable player in her own right, it's even better because we just go to the series and we support each other, and she's got a final table run. I'm there to rail if I'm not playing, and vice versa. And I think it speaks to her as a person, though, that she's a very nurturing, supportive type of person. And she also doesn't take bad variance very badly. She kind of laughs off the bad beats, and she's very cheery, and I take it a bit harder. So I think we're very lucky to have each other. And I don't think it's probably the case for everyone that it goes that easy with two poker players. I could imagine a situation, for example, where if you're both downswinging and you're both a bit more like, me when you're in the mental bin, it could get a bit intense because, if you're a full-time poker player, it kind of has to be a bit all-consuming. It has to be something that you're focused on all the time, whether it's on the felt or off the felt, studying or, doing other stuff poker related. So I could imagine it being possibly difficult for others. But yeah, I think it speaks to her personality type that we work so well, both being poker pros. And I think we've both improved a lot, and we're in a nice groove now where our expectations quite high when we go and play series. So we're not like, I feel like it's really tough if you're just starting out. It's much harder because maybe your win rate's a lot lower, and you're exposed to a lot greater variance, and then your downswings can go on for a long time. I had a horrible one that lasted almost 3 years, and I wasn't the player that I am today. But yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And I will say, you're a recreational player, Craig. Catherine, I guess you're recreational, but you also deal as a profession. And Troy understands it as well because he's a pro. But I think being a recreational that aims to be a winning player, that enjoys the strategy of the game, that plays it for fun, is probably the best way to play poker. Even though I am a pro and it looks glamorous and it looks fun and all this stuff, which it is sometimes, there is hardship. And so I think if you've got like a good job and you enjoy the game, I would just keep it that way personally. But everyone's different. Sometimes you got to take a shot and go for it. And before I was a poker player, I was just doing odd jobs. I had a bad breakup, and I never had any money, and I was in university and I let that slip, and I was going to do post-grad, another degree, and yada, yada, yada. I ended up just doing odd jobs, and I was in a rut. So for me,
you're going to be a doctor, right, Bert?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, for a time I was going to be a doctor. I studied against. I got the requisite requirements to get in, but it didn't work out for me. But yeah, I have no regrets about it. And at this point in my life, I'm very, very happy with where I ended up. But yeah, I think it's kind of glamorized, the pro lifestyle. And it is a lot of fun. And I will say, traveling to new countries and sitting down and playing a fresh stack in like a 5K buy-in, it's never not going to be exciting for me. Like, I still really enjoy it, but it does come with its drawbacks as well.
Yeah, and you said you've got a tournament to play after this, actually, and you're over there traveling at the moment with a few friends. We've got Dylan Wayne over there, so we wish you guys all the best over there. Also, I wanted to ask you about, so when you're over there as well, do you miss parts of Australia? Do you miss family and friends, obviously, pets, just the weather, all that sort of stuff? Food?
I do. It's yeah. I'm a vegan, so for me, the food can get challenging in certain places. In Australia, we just have access to amazing food, and I'll say stuff like, when you go and eat at a Vietnamese or Thai restaurant in Australia, oftentimes the quality of the food you're eating is higher than overseas, and I think it's not necessarily like any sort of culinary expertise or anything, but it's just the quality of the ingredients. We have really high quality food in Australia, so I do miss that. I miss getting like really nice food. It's funny, you asked about a bunch of things and I focused on the food, so there you go. It tells you a bit about me. But
food is life.
But
it's important.
Yeah.
Oh, you obviously got you live on the Sunshine Coast. You're not far from the beach, and you've got a puppy, and you've sort of that stuff you get back into when you get home, when you get a chance.
Yeah, I've got a great lifestyle up there, and it is true that I miss home a lot. I have my family in Melbourne, and my brother, who is a doctor, he has 2 young boys. They're 2 and 1 year old almost, and so I miss hanging out with them as well. I became an uncle 2 years ago, and it's just been awesome. So I'm definitely, I think, my heart of hearts, quite a homebody, despite all my globetrotting the last couple of years. But having said that, when I do get home, I kind of get itchy pretty quick as well. I'm like, ooh, where's the next series? I still feel like I get super excited for the start of a series, and then halfway through, of course, I'm whinging like everyone else. But
you whinging? I don't believe it.
just privately. Publicly, I'm a smiling, happy guy. In private, there's some times where I'm whinging.
Yeah, and so speaking of family and that too, like, how do you get along with in terms of explaining to family and friends and people that about playing poker professionally? Because obviously to the public and sort of like from a public perception, poker's seen as just degenerate gambling, and obviously the name slot machines over here are called pokies, so people just think, oh, poker player, you're just a gambler, like a misled youth, degenerate. How do you sort of deal with that?
Yeah, it's a good question. When I was raised that my parents both told me that gambling is bad. You just don't ever go to the casino. Gambling's really bad. It hurts families, blah, blah. And I just took that as gospel. And and overall, gambling is a net negative on society, I think. And I think in some sort of future utopia, there would be no gambling, right? Or you'd have some sort of controlled gambling where people could only gamble a percentage of their net worth that's immaterial, right? So maybe, if you've got $10,000 in the bank, you're only allowed to play $20 tournaments or something by law. Or I don't know. I'm just spitballing, but I do think that overall gambling is net negative. I will say I didn't really know anything about it, and I played poker long before I got even entered into a casino. I was playing Zynga poker on Facebook with my uni mates. That's how I started, actually, and I would just crush all my uni friends. Like, dude, this is so easy. I'm going to be rich. I'll go play on Poker Stars. And then I started playing like 1 cent, 2 cent, or 5 cent, 10 cent or something. And actually, the first time I was in a casino, I went to Crown, and my friend, who was like a bit of a freewheeling, free dealing guy, he's a party animal. He played a lot of poker, and he's like, come, we'll play 1-2, and we'll have a good time. And I'm like, all right, I think the buy-in was $80 for 1-2. And I said, all right, I'll bring $80, and if I lose 20, I'll just get up and leave, and I won't play ever again. I was like so scared, and I think I had about $200 in the bank, so I was risking a big chunk of my net worth. And I won $400 in like an hour and 10 minutes, and thus a DGen is born. I just loved it. But the thing about poker that's different is that it's a game of deep, complex strategy, and it's a social game. And so I think it actually stands alone in the realm of gambling games, it is really truly different to all the other ones. And you're right, people don't understand that. So, for example, my mum was just concerned that I was going to lose my money. Right? She didn't. At the start, anyway, she didn't really understand how the game worked or how people make a living doing it and so on. My dad, he was pretty receptive to it. I just said to him, he was in financial planning, and I said to him, imagine it's like day trading. You're taking high risk, high yield bets, right? So when I buy into a tournament, I'm going to lose 80% of the time. Sometimes I'm going to cash, and then very occasionally I'll win the tournament. I'll come second or third or whatever. And he kind of understood that straight away. He's like, oh, okay, so it's like edge trading or day trading. So he grasped that pretty quick. And both my parents were always, they raised me, and they reiterated many times to me that they just wanted to see their sons thrive and be happy. I'm one of 3 boys. And, you know, as long as I was doing something that I found fulfilling and I was finding happiness, they were happy as well. So I was lucky in that sense that I had pretty much unilateral support from friends and family. Yeah, you know, I think it would be a lot harder to do if your parents were like really anti it or something like that. You'd really have to post up big results. I think I've got some friends from other backgrounds, you know, especially people with Asian parents. I know that they're quite conservative, the ones that immigrate to Australia. So I've got friends with that sort of background, and they found it more tough. But money talks. So when you start,
weren't very receptive at the start, right? And then
yeah, well, he's an interesting case because he was an engineer, I believe. So he was working. He'd done university and was working as an engineer.
Was that Yeda?
He had like
Yeah.
He had a nice salary, and he sort of left that to pursue poker, which takes courage, especially with he was in a tight-knit community with his sister and parents. And so I didn't have to face those challenges. I had different challenges in my life, but so to get to the core of your question, it is tough to explain to people. My mum's side of the family, actually, she's American, and my grandma, when I was a little boy, was playing canasta and bridge and rummy with me, gin rummy. So I learned card games from a very young age, and they were all gamblers, casual gamblers. And in the US, it's kind of, I feel like card games are much better understood over there. Poker's more of a cultural norm. It's like, let's have a poker game. You have a Christmas poker game or whatever. Everyone kind of understands. You play for pennies or whatever. It's not a big deal. Where that's not really the case in Australia. I think the casual gambling in Australia kind of is focused around horse racing, maybe, or sports, but and the pokies, of course. Yeah. So my mum's side of the family, actually, to this day, my aunties and uncles, they watch me on streams and stuff. They just love it. They actually love watching me play, which is so cool. I don't know if half of them know the rules, but yeah, it's awesome to have that support as well. So yeah, from my perspective, for my family, it's been very easy. And in terms of my friends outside of poker that have regular jobs, I was always kind of a bit of a misfit, outcast sort of guy. So most of my friends have alternative lifestyles, really. I found it difficult to connect with people in the 9-to-5 sort of careers because they're so exhausted. They're working all day. They're exhausted by the time they get home. And then the sorts of things I was still like, when I was like in my mid-20s, I had no prospects. I had no assets. I was, you know, just living my life. And I had friends that were like onto their second jobs or whatever, and they were like looking at buying houses and setting them down. And I was still trying to work out if I preferred Fruit Loops or Chex Mix as, you know, my cereal for the morning, you know. So I was definitely late to that sort of thing. So most of my friends.
You were working at a bottle shop, weren't you?
I was working, yeah. So the last job I had was working at a 24-hour bottle shop in Paran in Melbourne, and that was a wild experience. We used to have 6 security guards on during the weekends.
Wow.
It was a wild place.
You mentioned, you know, in some sort of future utopian world, there wouldn't be any gambling because it's net negative.
I think so.
Also, what about a future world where the only gambling you're allowed to do was poker? That wouldn't be that bad.
I'd be for that. I think I'll give you an example, right? So let's say you've got a lady who's in her retirement age and she's not close to her family, and she goes and plays the pokies every day, right? Which you see that all the time, or a man, whatever. When they go they have this activity, right? Maybe the pub, the staff at the pub, the RSL, the casino, they know them and they have a little bit of a social encounter, and then they go and sit on a machine for 3 hours, whatever. Regardless of what you think about the financial impact, which there's always going to be a negative impact, compare that to going and playing pub poker, right? You sit down, maybe the game's $5 game, $10 game, whatever. And then you might have conversations with people, you're engaging with people, and also you're using your brain. So you're, especially at an advanced age, for example, you're activating parts of your brain that help keep you healthy and youthful. And so I think that there's always ancillary benefits to the game that are overlooked in that sort of environment, the pub poker environment. I think like high stakes cash games where people are risking too much, or, maybe if people are sort of playing above the rim with bankroll management, even in tournaments. But I think tournaments are a lot less sort of dangerous, I would say, than high stakes cash. But then there's some risk. But yeah, I think poker can be enjoyed, even with that. You can have that element of financial risk and the ability to win money and win sometimes lots of money without it having the negatives if you're careful with it. Whereas I think with pokies and similar games, I don't see the positives. You get a social interaction. You say hello. Oh, hi. I'll have my usual, and then you go and sit on the machine. But I think that that's why I always love the game, because I sat down at the casino and I meet people from all over the world straight away, and I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Like, and I've been on someone's yacht. I've met people that are captains of industry. I've rubbed shoulders with people that I would have never otherwise met from different generations in this game, that I would never have met in my everyday life. I don't have access to that sort of situation. And then I developed friendships and relationships with these people, and that aspect of it has always been attractive. So I do think there are all these other benefits. Do I think poker is dangerous? Some people, yes. Do I think there are risks to it? Yes. Even for people who are pros,
But how good is it to win a trophy too? So you see, like, we've all got friends, and that we send you a photo of their big win or jackpot that they got on the poker machines or whatever. Alan Kessler shared a big win that he had of $1.2 million at some poker in Vegas. But at the end of the day, like, I like the challenge of poker, and if you win a tournament, obviously there's some luck involved, but it took some level of skill, right? And so it's just that challenge that you can take that trophy home, or you win a ring, or you win a bracelet. You can show that to your mum or your brothers or your friends and family, and say, I won that. And obviously it's nice to win on the pokies and things as well. But as I said, there's no skill
with poker. Like, you're accomplishing something, and I'm really, really happy now. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, we've had the acknowledgement of poker is now being recognized as a mind sport. It's like, I feel like that's cool. Going to shift the entire dynamic of what poker's recognized as, and it's no longer being recognized as this just full-on gambling degenerate activity. It's recognized as a sport now, and the avenues that could open up, I'm waiting to see what that will do for us. Really
I'm hoping that will allow online poker back, as it's technically a sport now. It's not in the same classification as like horse racing and sports betting and all that kind of stuff. Maybe
I think that's an interesting point. I know that in Asia there are some countries where even school children are learning poker. They're not playing for money; it's just a strategic element of the game. And there's a thing called match poker where they don't play for money either, and it's just you're just trying to play like the highest standard or play most like a solar, or I don't know what the qualifications are, but there's university teams for it in Taiwan, for example. So it's definitely it's going that way, the way of chess, I would say. And back to your point about the sense of accomplishment, I still get super excited. I think it's a great point. And I still get super excited when I have a final table sweat, and the thrill of victory, the sweat of an FT, and sharing it with your friends, having a rail, being a part of someone else's success, celebrating that aspect of it is what makes tournament poker the best format. I think it's by far the best format.
You don't get that when you're playing high stakes cash or anything like that. You don't have a big rail.
Like, you don't have that when you're playing the pokies. You don't have that when you're down at the pub or betting on the horses or whatever. I can remember a particular final table that you were there. You were part of, Bert. You weren't on the table, but Jen was, and that would have been a pretty nice thing to be a part of as well. Obviously, it's, one of my biggest accomplishments and one of my favourite days of poker ever. Obviously, Jen won that tournament.
One.
She won the tournament, and you were there on the rail the whole way, and Yeah, no, it was great, you know, and it wasn't sort of like, you know, Jen ended up winning. We did a bit of a deal, but you know, it was just an amazing feeling,
Yeah,
regardless of the
that's something
result.
that you guys Lee and Jen will probably always remember. Having a 6-figure score like that and being able to chop it up with friends is super special. And yeah, go on.
And I saw recently, like I saw the photo that you mentioned, Constantine Held, who won the WPT main last year over in, was it Cambodia?
Yeah, Cambodia.
Yeah, and you were all part of his rail there. Obviously, you had a
5%. With McCulley.
Yeah, he chopped it with McCulley as well. So, you know, it's just that massive rail and just the environment and excitement and the community sort of feel that you get in this particular form of gambling. You know, in the same way that you all rally around someone. If you had a friend who was, you know, in the last hole of a golf championship, or as part of a football team, or in the grand final, you know, like
I get
like
warm
that.
and fuzzy when I watch people that I know and like have success or they're in a spot. I really do enjoy it. And I think actually it was Dean Blatt who kind of made me realize that. I remember my first big FT, one of my first big FTs in Gold Coast to the WPT. His friend Matt Rolfe was on it as well. He's also a lovely guy from Sydney. And he said, "Hey, Bert," came up to me on the break before the FT, and he said, "Hey, man, you know, I watch you. You know, you're working hard. If Matt doesn't win it, I want you to win." And he gave me a big handshake. And I was like, I don't know this guy. He's very intimidating on the table, right? I played with him before. He was a very tough player, especially at that time. He's one of the best in Oz. And I kind of flipped my perspective. I was like, holy crap. You know, he wants me to succeed, even though he's got no stake in me. You know, he wants his friend to win above me, of course. That's normal.
Yeah,
but I was like,
think
that's
right.
That's so nice to have that. And it felt very genuine.
Well, I think that's the difference between shout out to Dean. I think that's probably the easiest way to sort of the point of difference between poker and other forms of gambling, right? I don't think any other type of gambling where you have a rail, right?
I mean,
you know
maybe
I mean?
at the pokies, if
Speaking of gambling, I've got a really good point for you. There was a bet that you made when we were in America, Bert. Do you remember? This is a really good gambling bet. Can you explain?
A side bet.
All right, so this is a proposition bet, and we were in San Francisco. We had just finished the World Series of Poker, and Catherine, you were there too, actually. The World Series, that was cool. We were sort of working off the rot that sets in after a long series. We were tired, and we went on a little road trip. We went to San Francisco, and there may have been some edibles involved, and we were drinking, and we were at a pub, and we were watching the gymnastics trials for the Olympics, I think it was, on TV. And I was feeling quite confident. I was like, you know, it doesn't look that hard. I could do that. When someone was doing a backflip, and Troy's like, bullshit. So anyway, long story short, we made a bet. I get 1 year to do a standing backflip.
Was there any financial
going with that?
money involved in that, or
$1,000? And we didn't specify which currency.
US.
Later, I think it was we did it at the time. We did it. About like a few days later, he's like, "What currency was it?" And I go, "Let's make it US." I was so confident. Look, I will say I got ChatGPT to make me a plan for this. So I've got like a 17-step plan.
No.
And I'm a little bit behind. So,
what do you reckon your chances are out of 100?
I'd say I'm an underdog, but I don't think it's impossible. I would give myself, like, if you had to bet on it, I would take like $4 or something.
No.
I would need to do something significant, like put significantly more effort into it. So I got to decide if I want to do that or just pay you $1,000. Paying Troy $1,000 and watching his shit-eating grin as I hand him over $1,000 US is a really tough pill to swallow.
It's gonna
so
be
I'm
good.
considering steroids, paying a gymnast, an Olympic gymnast, you know, all these other options.
Olympic gymnast, you reckon?
Liposuction, you know, I might have to do some stuff.
If you're over in Vietnam at the moment and you win the next 4 tournaments or whatever, you know, there's a certain amount of money you just win where you just don't care about the 1,000 anymore, right?
Yeah, it's not really about the money though. I think I'd probably spend.
That's pride, right? You want to you just can't give Troy this money. You have to win this.
Yeah, I'd probably spend up to $10,000 just to get it to be able to do it. I think. But if someone said, "Would you pay $10,000 to be in this shape and have the ability to backflip, or pay Troy $1,000?" I would definitely take the 10. I'd take the 10 of it, or maybe even more.
You said up to 40, you'd spend 40K to learn how to do a backflip.
That's true. I did say that. You got to stop taking things I say when I'm in these moods, man. Like when I'm sober the next day, I'm like, oh God, what have I done?
All right. Well, we better sort of gonna have to let Bert go soon, but because he's got to play his tournament. So we've got Bert here. We're going to take him through the blender segment, which is a few quizzes. So we'll see how he goes with these quiz questions. We'll be asking Kathy and Troy and Bert. Do you want to just test your buzzers for me?
Oh!
Billion Dong Birdie.
That's it. Your buzzers are working. So first question. Which actor starred in these two gambling movies, 21 and House of Cards?
Kathy!
I think Kathy beats you in there.
Is it Kevin Spacey?
Yes, it's Kevin Spacey. All right. Next question, which...
I'm blaming that one on lag.
Next question, which I think Bert might have more of an advantage at. $1 million dong is how much Australian?
Billion Dong Birdie.
60?
$60. 60 Australian bucks. Yeah, that's very good. That's spot on. Well, the next question is also in about Asia. But expect Troy might be able to get this one as well. What's the capital city of Vietnam?
Billion Dong Birdie.
But Bert?
Hanoi.
Yes, Hanoi. Hanoi. So you've been to obviously a lot of cities. Hanoi is the capital.
It's in the north. The north won the war, so I think they put all the parliament and everything in there. So.
Because it's summer, cricket season started, which is pretty exciting for me because I love cricket. Who's the captain of the Australian Test cricket team?
Oh, I know, but I can't think of his name. You finally put a question that I might be able to answer, and I've chowed it.
I'm not actually drawing Ted. I was a huge cricket fan back in the days of Warney, Gilchrist, and Gillespie, and Matthew Hayden, all those guys. But drawing Ted.
Yep. No.
Give us the first letter.
P. PC is his initials. Come on, it's the Australian Test cricket team. You guys don't watch Test cricket?
No.
The Test starting tomorrow.
You're gonna have to cut this.
Yeah, Pat Cummings.
Yeah.
As Bert was in Vietnam, he has lost connection, but we would like to thank him for joining it. We really appreciate his time. Some of his answers I thought were really well thought out, and it's just incredible getting that sort of access to a player with Bert's caliber. So, if he comes
as much as it hurts me to say this, he's a pretty smart guy.
Thank you, Bert.
Yeah, thanks, Bert.
Thanks, Bert.
So something else we saw recently that occurred on a stream, actually, the Australian Poker League Jackstar that was brought to us by LCA Poker, was when it got to heads up, we saw something very unusual. And I didn't know what was sort of happening there, and the commentary from Jordan Bromley didn't as well. But what happened is the third player busted out and they became heads up. James Searle and Julian Lee, I think it was. So they're heads up. Julian had chip lead about 8.6 million and James Searle had about 6.8. And what happened was Julian left the table. So he disappeared. There was no scheduled break, of course. And what happened was there was no one sort of knew what was going on. James Searle, who was sitting at the table there, he moved his chips across and sort of said to the TD and the dealer, what are we doing? Are we playing on? Or I don't know exactly what he said, but he asked what was going on. And what eventually was decided was that after looking for him for a couple of minutes, they ended up, because they couldn't pause the clock, just playing on. So that was interesting. the TD had to put the chips in the pot, and then the dealer would deal the cards, and then the blinds and antes would just be pushed James's way. So, yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. I didn't actually like what I saw, to be honest. But I sort of don't want to be too harsh because it's something you wouldn't see very often. But yeah, what do you sort of think about that, Troy? What was your sort of read?
I mean, online it happens sometimes with someone's disconnects or something, but there's nothing you can do. But I mean, especially in a live setting, as a professional, I would just ask them to pause the clock. I mean, I kind of understand it. People that don't play full time or whatever might not understand that you can ask them to pause the clock or whatever and get them to pause it, because I would hate to win from someone blinding out, kind of thing. So, I mean, I would hope that if I was, if I had tripped over in the toilet or something and hurt myself or something, and I was 10 minutes late from a break and I'm heads up and I get blinded out, that would, I would really dislike that. So I'd like to think that that person that I was playing heads up with would just pause the clock until I got back. Even, you don't know the reason why the person wasn't there. He might have hurt himself. He might have just thought there was a scheduled break. I'm not sure. But, yeah, that's my own opinion. But
and then if you win the tournament as well, then it's kind of like your entire integrity of winning. You don't want that to be shot. You don't want people to be like, oh, did you only win because you got blinded out? And we did an ICM calculation, right? We worked out the actual value of how much money he lost when he left the table and when the chips were taken out. And what did we come to, guys?
So it's $2,761, and I think it was about 2 million chips that he actually lost in the time that he was on break. So
so he actually came back. It was probably 3 or 4 minutes. I counted 4 or 5 hands, I think. There was 2 million chips left, and the blinds were 1,200,000 with a 200,000 big blind ante. So every time there's a big blind, he loses 400K. So it must have been, I guess, five hands, I think, or 4 hands and 2 small blinds. So yeah, it was. As I said, he did come back and he ended up getting a chance to compete for the money and the trophy, but
he ended up winning, right?
No, James, the guy that ended up leaving and coming back, he ended up losing.
Second.
Became second.
Yeah. Well, that could have been a big factor there.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what is going on here, guys. It looks like Julian ran off from the stream table when there wasn't a break. And because of that, he is not here and he's getting blinded out. It looks like what's happening. I don't know for sure. I'm sorry, I don't have any more info, but apparently he just walked away from heads up. So for now, he's getting blinded out. James with a pretty easy beginning to this heads up battle.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's just this awkward situation where obviously you've got to make a decision. A player's left, but then at the same time, you don't want to also be a winner by winning from someone losing their chips. And it's a mess. Like, it is a competition at the end of the day, and I completely understand that. There's a lot of money up for grabs, and if this is the way that you get to have an advantage because a player's left, I get it. At the same time, is that how you want to win? So it's just this awkward situation that obviously the TD was put in.
And it's nothing on the player. Like, I think now that, he probably wasn't even aware that that was a thing that they could do. And I think for a lot of like recreational players, they don't know what to do. It's not on them. Like, I think it has to be some onus on like the TD or the people that are in charge. And I think there just has to be some awareness about that you can actually ask for stuff. Like you can actually get the clock paused if you want to schedule a break whenever, when your head's up, three-handed at final table, just so that people actually do know.
Well, it's interesting because the next day the main event was on and they got to 3 runners, and when they got to, like 3 people left, the clock was paused and they actually went on a break. So
yeah, all the players would have agreed. So what would have happened here is there wasn't an agreed break. The players didn't say, I agree, and James hadn't agreed to a break. So all the rules were followed. And, you know, as a robot, if this was all done, as I said, online or a computer program, and there was a computer dealing or whatever, and no emotional human element, what would have happened would have been he just would have been blinded out. And it would have been blinded out.
Well, you're saying that even in the 10K final tables online, if someone's sitting out, like there's a lost internet connection, normally the players all use like a minute or two of their time bank to try and, allow that person time to get back on, because they're playing for like a lot of money. Like even this Jackstar, they're playing for like
61,740 was first, 40,750 was second.
Yeah, it's like 20K difference between first and second, which
so that was a 2 million chip swing in those 4 or 5 hands that Julian missed out on. We worked out that was $2,700 in EV that was lost there. And look, I just think all that should have happened is the TDs just sort of said, look, we'd be happy for us to pause the clock, and then James has the option to say yes or no. If James doesn't,
just the option, we can pause the clock or you can play on. Like then he knows his options, right? If that wasn't really given, he'd be like, okay, well,
we don't really know the situation. Maybe the option was given and he said no, or maybe there was no option
that
given.
Could have been the situation as well.
Obviously,
it's all speculation, I guess.
Yeah, you don't see this very often. But look, anything could have happened where the player could have gone to the bathroom. He could have been sick. He could have slipped over, as you said. So it's best just to give some sort of benefit of doubt to the player if they're missing, just for a few minutes at least, just until you find out what's going on. When he did come back, he was pretty annoyed. He'd lost 2 million chips initially,
but
and he did realise it was his fault.
If you listen to the audio, he goes straight away, "Oh, that's on me. It's on me. It's all good." So he took the own, which it is on him really. But I mean, if it was me that it was heads up with, I would have just said pause the clock But anyway, you live and you learn. You know that you can do that as an option for next time, and it's more about like letting everyone in the chat or that listens to the podcast know that that's an option if someone isn't there as well.
Yeah, it is an interesting one because, as you said, these ones don't happen very often. And I just thought we'd mention it on the podcast because that way, we can see what other people think. What, you're as a professional and Catherine, a dealer, and me, we all seem to be on the same page that the right thing to do there is just to pause the clock. And I know the TDO rule or whatever probably says, you're not allowed to pause the clock under any circumstance unless there's a scheduled break or whatever. But there's got to be a common sense rule, number one. It says, just in interest of fairness, we can pause the clock for just a few minutes just to find out what is going on, because that's the fairest thing to do. Anyway, we'll move along from that. That was just an interesting thing that happened. So, Kathy, you said you're off to the Bahamas tomorrow. Is that right?
Yeah, Thursday. So, taking the 24-hour flight, and we're off to the Bahamas.
They'll be looking forward to that. You going to be playing much or just over there in moral support?
No, just moral support. Definitely is a high roller series. And I convinced myself, I'll play some satellites. I didn't look at the schedule and realize that they're not doing satellites.
Well, all the events are like 10K plus, right? I think that's like the smallest event.
No,
of the
there
series.
is a 2.5K. There's the mini main, but the only way to have satellited into the mini main was by playing online on GG. And I don't have access to GG, so I couldn't play any of the online satellites.
We can't play in Australia anyway, so.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I'm saying I don't have access to GG.
So you'll just be going over there for a holiday.
Yes.
There's plenty of water activities to do over there, snorkeling, scuba diving.
Plenty of fun things. And Shem's only playing the main event and the invitational free roll anyway. So we'll have plenty of time to do everything that we want to do.
And there was some news coming out of the Bahamas, actually, wasn't there, about the WSOP, and they made a rule change due to the electronic devices that were used at the final table in this year's main event.
The
do you realize?
laptop incident. Yes, so obviously there was a lot of controversy that ensued after the WSOP. There's a big debate happening about whether, like, you know, that use of that laptop on the sideline, like, obviously it wasn't being used by a player, but there was a GTO chart being used, and that was access to electronics. And then obviously they were saying at the very, very start of the series that they didn't want players on their phones, or they didn't want any players on electronics. But then that line was drawn where obviously he wasn't using the electronics, but the player on the sideline was. So after this debate ensued, they've now made the ruling of the Bahamas that electronics are not to be used in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and that includes the spectators or anyone in the room, I believe, as well. That was the main difference I got from that, is that the spectators as well. So you can't go and refer to people that might be able to help you as well, just because you can't.
Is that on the final table, or is that in general? Like, you can't be at a table and have your phone there, or?
I think it's in general. So I can't be playing a tournament and then have you either in the room or on another table, and even asking you about sort of hands in terms of using electronic devices to do that. So
it's going to be so interesting to see how they police this, because that's what they were saying would be a big issue at the WSOP in Vegas. They're like, well, how do you ban all phones? Like, how do you get people to not be using that, because it's going to be so hard to police it? But I just think it's going to come down to a matter of like integrity, right?
I think common sense will prevail, and what happens is, so you know what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing.
Exactly. Basically. I think if you're on solvers while you're stepped away from the table, it's like, come on, man. Like,
And so what happened at the WSOP
this year? Like, I seen someone on my table folded the hand and he's checking charts. I was like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, so it's like what happened in the WSOP main event with Jonathan Tomeo was the laptop it was like they had what's his Dominic Nish. So what happened at the WSOP this year? It was like that Dominic Nish and Jonathan Tomeo, they'd made a decision and they'd gone through the actual rule book just to see what they could do, and they knew it wasn't illegal. So they'd done that, and you know, they knew they couldn't get in trouble for what they were doing because it wasn't actually a rule. Now, if they went through the rule book this time, it would be a rule that says they can't do what they were doing. So, it's more just that they've come down tough on all this sort of stuff. So we're not saying the other guys were cheating, but we're making a rule just so that there's no ambiguity next time. It won't be happening again like that, because it was bad to watch. I didn't like what I saw. So, so speaking of final tables, just like to go through a couple of maiden winners for this week. In fact, 2 maiden winners and then 1 special achievement. So the first maiden winner was Pratik. He won the APL main event at the Rooty Hill West HQ. That was his first ever result on Hendon Mob. So congratulations to him.
That's pretty impressive.
That's pretty impressive, right?
Yeah.
It was like over 800 entries or something there. And the second one, Daniel Melville, he took out the Fast 500. That was his first ever win as well. So congratulations to him. And then our third achievement, which I thought was pretty special as well, Kat Farris. She won 3 events at the APL at Rooty Hill. 3 events in the one series. Would you believe that?
It's pretty impressive.
And I did look her up, and it is not her first win ever, but she seems to be a recreational player and plays the small type of buy-ins. But yeah, she took out the freeze-out finisher, and she also won the one-shot freeze-out. She also won the ladies' event. So that's pretty good achievement. So shout out to them. So just to wrap up the show, it's obviously going to be one of our last podcasts for the year. In fact, it might be the last. So I want to thank Kathy and Troy for joining us this year on this new podcast.
No worries.
You can find us obviously on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts as well. If you are watching this on either of those platforms, please remember to like it and subscribe it. It does mean a lot if we get your feedback like that. And also leave us a comment. We're also very keen to hear what other viewers think. We also have social media channels out there where we like to share some content. So please follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Other than that, we'll see you in the new year.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Take
See you
care.
later.
Not recording.
It is, yeah. It's
for fuck's sake, are you serious?
But he just cut it. He won't be actually in the.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
recording
Podcast.
that.
Don't get any of that in.
And then we'll be able to put that on Craig's OnlyFans.
Oh, really?
This is for our other content. That's how we make our money.
Featuring, we'll do a reel.
we should get the
Featuring
viewers
Simon
higher.
Wahesh's nipple.
Get more viewers. Did they know you were here?
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
Playing my nipples? Oh. So should I get changed?
Well, it's going to take you an hour and a half.
Bye.
Yeah, blow dry your hair and shit, Simon.